They were that close, Chris. They were that close to pulling out a win. They were that close.
Oh, man, you choked me up. Why'd you do that? Oh, gosh. They were close. It feels like a win almost.
It does, but I also don't want to get into, like, I don't want to get into all that. But, hey, you know what? They showed something today, and that's what I care about. Let's get this sucker started.
Get dialed in, Panthers fans. Here comes an in-depth look at your team. Exclusive interviews. Locker room insight. Ready? Let's huddle up.
Let's just do it, okay?
For Panthers Playbook, driven by Carolina Ford Dealers. Here are your hosts, Dennis Cox and Chris Lea.
Welcome back to another episode of Panthers Playbook. That's Chris Lea, Dennis Cox here with you. We're at Bank of America Stadium. Leave your thoughts in the comment section on this game. I know it's a loss, 30-27 to the Kansas City Chiefs, a walk-off field goal for the Chiefs in the last second of the game, but a lot to build off of. But before we get into that, Chris, Carolina Ford Dealer, our sponsor at Panthers Playbook. With a Ford F-150 on your team, it's game on. See your Carolina Ford dealer today. Man, that came right down to the wire. That team fought. They were right there with it. You can tell this team is starting to believe more and more every single week.
You know, I don't have a lot of complaints coming out of this game. There's a lot of things we normally can talk about as to why the Panthers normally lose.
Yeah.
This one honestly comes down to, besides the fourth quarter, the defense not getting stops when they needed to.
On that final drive, yeah.
Red zone stops
red zone.
for the defense, and also red zone stops, or I guess the Panthers offense actually scoring 6 in the red zone instead of 3. And I'll also say play calling.
There's a little bit of that as well.
There's some of that with Dave Canales, and he told us after the game that essentially because the Chiefs were stacking the box in the first half, he didn't run as much as he wanted to, but it was only 3 attempts that were called.
Yeah,
right.
Only
So
3.
like for a team that's supposed to be all about the run and be a run-first mentality, it just doesn't look like it. He does panic just a little bit, it feels. But other than that, really solid game. And, we got to give our guy Bryce Young some credit.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into Bryce here in a second. But you mentioned the red zone. Only 2 of 6 in the red zone today. By the way, most trips in the red zone of any game this season for the Carolina Panthers. The previous was Week 3 against the the Las Vegas Raiders. My apologies. They had 5 trips. Yeah. They had 5 trips in that game. They got 3 touchdowns on 5 attempts in that game. This game, 6 attempts, only 2 touchdowns in it. And I was doing the math going in the game during the course of the game. The Panthers were actually 64% in the red zone offensively this season, which was 5th best in the NFL. Now, granted, number of red zone attempts per game was 27th in the NFL, but in terms of actually converting,
but when they get there,
they were converting.
They were doing all right.
But here's the thing. On their first 5 red zone attempts, they had 1 touchdown. They had 18 plays in the red zone on those first 5 attempts. 5 of them were runs. 4 of them came on the drive they scored a touchdown. All the other times they ended up with field goals. Now, on the final red zone attempt, it was just 1 play because he had the pass interference in the end zone to Adam Thielen. Ball's on the 1-yard line. Chuba Hubbard carries it in, touchdown. So just 1 play on that one. But nonetheless, when they were running the football, that's when they were finishing drives with touchdowns. We saw that in the second half especially. So the red zone offense, gosh, you make 1 more, convert 1 more of those 6 attempts, you're winning this game. You really are. That's where you were in this game. You're right there, and this is what Dave Canales talks about, finish, finish, finish.
Yeah, and a lot of that too, I think there was a few head-scratching calls, in there. But, I mean, we talked about the run versus the pass in there when it comes down for the Panthers. But, yeah, I think that's also, for them, it's going to come down to having more attempts in the red zone and being more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. Bryce Young looks a lot more comfortable with what he's doing. The offense looks a lot more comfortable together. It's just going to come down to execution at the end of the day when it, for them to get better with that. But you have to capitalize on your opportunities, especially with a team like that, who more than likely is going to head back to the Super Bowl this year. I mean anything is possible. Anything is possible. They may not.
Understandable.
But, they also just lost their first game of the season last week. And they were due for one. This is a team that the Panthers could have gotten tonight.
Oh, yeah.
So,
could have gotten
so it's just one of those, you do want to see them kind of finish with their opportunities and get better when it comes to that.
Speaking of how Bryce Young played, let's actually go to the locker room. Adam Thielen, who came back today, he had some positive things to say about Bryce Young.
Just being himself, just being able to have fun, not worry about just being perfect. I think we talked about it
the last few days. But I feel like he just feels like he doesn't have to be perfect. Like he can just go out there, play free, have fun. And it's a long game, right? Like you can have bad plays. All of us can individually, but it doesn't matter. You just keep going to work and good things will happen.
All right, back here on Panthers Playbook. We're being joined by Sheena Quick. Sheena Quick.
Look who it is.
Look who it is in the flesh.
From High Point, North Carolina. There's two people in here from High Point.
High Point, stand up.
You were in the locker room with us and all that, and there's a few players that talked about how Bryce Young addressed the team, and I was asking you about this after the game. You said it's not the first time he's done it, so I haven't heard that yet before today. What have they been saying about that and Bryce Young stepping up from the things you've been hearing?
But here's the thing. The only people that feel like Bryce Young isn't a leader, none of those people are in that locker room.
Yeah.
And because his leadership is different from what we have come to expect,
They don't like
here
the
in
celebration.
Carolina, they don't. I asked him what it was. I don't know what that was. But either, I don't know, Rocky at the top of the steps, I don't know what that was. But he's been a leader. They've been saying that. He's been vocal. Just because it isn't visible to us, we don't see it. He's a little quieter. He has a different demeanor. But this is also kind of the house that Cam Newton built, arguably. So they got used to that personality, and Bryce is just being him. I don't want Bryce to all of a sudden come out here and thump his chest if that's not who Bryce Young is. Yeah. Bryce Young is being himself, and so I've never heard anyone in that locker room say anything about him not being a vocal leader.
But it is clear that he's a lot more confident, though. I mean, the body language is different.
He had to reset.
The body language is different. The facial expression is different. Like, it's so different right now.
He's having fun. He's tapping back into Bama Bryce. He's tapping back into Matter Day Bryce. He never really had to sit on the sideline and be, as far as being benched and watch somebody else lead the team that he's supposed to be leading. And so it put him in a place where he was uncomfortable. And sometimes you have to be made uncomfortable to take that next step. And that's what I felt like. That's why I was okay with the benching. He needed a hard reset, kind of like you sit your phone in rice and it dries out. Yeah. And that's what he did.
We talked about that in the prior episode. Basically, he's never going through adversity like that as far as like sitting behind someone, and now he's had to learn it, sit down, take his lumps, come back in.
We're seeing him be a better quarterback for it.
Yeah.
And Dave Canales, the head coach, said after the game, absolutely. He said the word absolutely when he said, should we expect him to start next week? And the guys in the locker room were definitely had his back, including guys like DJ Wanham.
He got that fire and he got that dog, and he want to win just as bad as us. We just got to figure out how to finish. Gave us some big plays during the game, but when it come down to it, we got to finish.
All right, Chris, I know statistically this wasn't the most passing yards that Bryce has had in his career in a game.
It's one of the highest, though.
It is one of the highest, but I felt like that was his best game that he's played in the Panther uniform. Yeah. And I think, talking to other people in the organization after the game, they were saying the same thing. I was like, you know what? Got to give the dude his flowers. We've been very critical of Bryce at times, and that criticism was due. But
warranted.
This praise today for how he played, 100% earned today. The guy played awesome today.
Yeah, what Sheena said before, it just felt like it was Bama Bryce. It's on a whole different level. Yeah. I do think, though, at a certain point, the head coach needs to give him something a little bit better, right? Like, like sometimes I think he put Bryce in bad situations with certain play calls, rolling him out. But also, I think Bryce, a few times there, did a great job, like when plays weren't there, using his legs.
Yeah, he did.
And that puts stress on the defense in a different type of way. Mm-hmm. And you have that, when you have that element now, and people actually need to look out for that, that completely changes how you defend a team. Because now you have to put some eyes on the quarterback when other times, like maybe if you go all man, all the backs are turned and all that, and Bryce, you're not thinking about Bryce because we're containing him back there, then, we can lock some people up. Now, all of a sudden, you got some eyes out. Maybe some people can sneak in some open areas, like an Adam Thielen, like a Jalen Coker when he comes back, like an Xavier Legette. So I think it kind of definitely helps out, adds another element to the Panthers offense for sure.
I know he was sacked a couple times today, but overall the protection was great.
Yes.
Like he had a lot of time. Yes, he did have to use his legs a couple times, but when you're playing against the Chiefs defense,
I think those were a result of the calls too, play calls.
Some of it is, but I will say this though, that the Chiefs in terms of actually sacking the quarterback is actually one of the lowest percentages in the NFL, but they're great in terms of yards per carry against and yards per pass against. That's really where they excel. But overall, the protection was there today. Bryce did have some time. And I will say, there were some of the throws that he made. I remember the crossing route that he, right over here, behind where we're standing, crossing route to Xavier Legette. Right here. Right here. Right over here. That crossing route that he threw in the first half to Xavier Legette was a dot. And then also some of the plays that didn't count as receptions, but were still earned yards. Like he threw it up into a perfect spot where Adam Thielen can go up and try and get the ball. That drew a pass interference, put the ball at the 1 yard line. Those kinds of things matter.
Tommy Tremble back in the
Right
back
through
of the
his
end zone
hands.
right here for the earlier 2-point
Yes.
conversion attempt.
No, that was for a touchdown.
Was that for the touchdown?
That was for a
Okay,
touchdown.
that was for the
but
touchdown.
it ended up being
Yes.
missed. They had to settle for a field goal.
Yes.
That was right over here as well.
Right
that
here.
was a perfectly thrown ball.
Should have been caught. That was all on
That was on
Tommy
Tremble.
Tremble to Xavier Legette when he dropped it. Like
Down the left
literally,
sideline, like down over there.
Like and then when they get the pass interference over here for the last touchdown,
Yeah.
right before that, the pass to Adam Thielen. It's a really good ball.
Yeah.
It was a really he's placing these balls in pause. He's placing these passes in really good areas, in places where only his receivers can get to it. And that touch, we knew that he had coming out of Alabama.
Yeah.
We just hadn't really seen it. And now that is coming back. That's the part that I love.
Something that was noticeable today, it felt like there's a little bit more pop on the passes, like a little bit more
Yes.
zip.
Yep.
And sometimes like he would able to get to a ball downfield, but it would just kind of flutter and die at the end.
Yeah.
This actually felt like the arm that we saw at Alabama, where he actually had some pace on some deep
Yeah.
balls and the touch, layering throws when he needs to as well. Well, again, we'll give kudos where it was. It was his best game by far.
And trust, right?
Yeah.
Xavier Legette drops a pass that he should have caught.
Yes.
Goes right back to him.
Yeah.
The next
that's right.
play.
That's right.
And it does feel like this group of wide receivers that's with him feels like they have a lot more trust with Bryce Young.
Yeah.
And now starting to see David Moore make some of the plays that he made in Seattle now.
Yeah.
Now it's like, okay, this is a little bit different. And shout out to Devin Tompkins. He had a couple pretty good plays in this one as well. So now, like, you're starting to see guys like really like kind of pick it up all around him, man. It's just beautiful. I wish there was more though for Jonathan Brooks.
Only 2 carries.
Only
today.
2 carries. I guess he would be on a little bit of a pitch count, but also like if you just rehab for a year,
Yeah.
I kind of want to see the guy, do
Yeah.
whatever he can do.
That's understandable.
And this, you've waited all this time. You're going against the Super Bowl champions. Let's go ahead and pull it all out right here. So.
I will say, talking to guys in the locker room, we heard it from Dave Canales in the postgame as well. The way this team is taking to the coaching and the culture that is being built, that is a big thing. Because even though with losses, they're still showing growth. I know they had 2 wins in their previous 2 games. They obviously had the bye week last week. But today showed, like, hey, we're still going in the right direction. Now it's about, okay, look, we're right there, guys. Finish it. Finish it. Red zone offense. Finish it. Defense on that last minute 46-second drive. Get the stop.
Yeah.
Now, because I will say the defense did give them 2 stops late in the second half in order to give the offense a chance to get down the field and score and tie the game. But it was the one at the very end where the Chiefs got the walk-off field goal. And speaking of the defense, Chris.
Did we mention their 5 sacks yet?
Oh, yeah. We'll say they did have 5
Clap it
sacks.
up. 5 sacks.
DJ Wanham, the guy we heard from earlier, had a sack today as well. But one of the guys got whistled for a few penalties today. And Sam Franklin said they were bad calls in the locker room. J.C. Horn talked about, hey, offense is playing. Defense had to do their part.
Our offense was balling all game. I feel like the defense, we tightened up in the second half. Like I said in the first half, we could have played way better if I wasn't getting PIs or whatever, because I think 2 or 3 of them was on 3rd down where we should have been off the field. But we just got to be better. We played the second half how we wanted to, limited them a little bit, but we just got to be better throughout 4 quarters.
I know it's a loss, Chris, but it feels like they're, again, something to feel good about.
Yes.
In terms of what this team is building. And for those who want the team to tank, congratulations, you got what you wanted as well. I'm not a big fan of tanking. I want this team to win because I think in order to build a winning culture, you need to win games.
Yes.
But I like the way this team is headed.
I hate the idea of tanking. I don't think anybody should want to tank on purpose. And I don't think it really even benefits you that much,
That's
right?
the 76ers.
It's just, yeah, I agree. But it doesn't benefit you that much, honestly, because, like, what's going to be the difference? The way Bryce Young is playing right now, it doesn't look like right now, and we could be completely wrong, it doesn't look like the Panthers are going to go after another quarterback. So some of the guys that they may be going after, it might just be a difference of, a spot here or there, but they could still get a top talent at number 8 or 9. Remember, Christian McCaffrey was number 8 overall.
Yeah.
So, like, There are 7 teams that passed on that guy.
Yeah.
That probably wish they had him right now, including the Carolina Panthers. But, it's that happens. And so you can still find really good guys at that level. And so I'm not a fan of tanking. I like what I saw today. I like what they've been doing for the last few weeks before the bye week with getting some wins in, because now these guys are going to come back here next week.
Yeah.
Against Dave Canales' old team.
Yeah, the Bucks.
And if they would have faced the Bucks in week 3 or week 4, that probably is a blowout.
Yeah.
Now, we don't know what's going to happen next week. I'm not going to make any predictions right now, but a team that just won 2 games, had a bye week, played the reigning Super Bowl champions, 2-time Super Bowl champions, to within 3 points, and they had to win on a last-second field goal. That's going to be a confident team that's going to come right back here next week to play against the Tampa Bay Bucks at 4:05.
That's the big question. How do you follow it up? All right, you had 2 wins in a bye week. You follow it up with a good performance, but you didn't get a win. How do you follow this one up? Because if you start laying duds after this, then much of this is for nothing. Because remember, we saw last year, 33-30, Panthers lose to the Green Bay Packers. I think it was on Christmas Eve, if I remember correctly. And guess what happened? The next 2 weeks, they got shut out. They got shut out the next 2 games after that Packers game. The loss to the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tampa Bay Bucks got goose eggs on the scoreboard.
I will say,
have to follow this up.
But the difference with that is that this organization is in a lot more stable of a place right now than what they were in that game last year.
Very true.
Very
true.
Last year for that game, it almost felt like catharsis. You're so bad at that point, and then you have a team that came here the day before Christmas, probably didn't give it their all, probably like, it's the Panthers, right? And they probably didn't give it their all with it.
Yeah.
Folks said that, the Kansas City Chiefs were going to be so upset about the loss last week that they're going to come in here and blow the Panthers out. And that didn't happen.
Did not happen.
And so this is a team that now can play a little bit better, and it looks like defense is starting to get their swagger as well. So if you got 2 sides of the ball getting their swagger and playing a little bit better, I'm sorry, I don't know if it's going to be like last year at all. This team is going to come in here with some pride and some confidence.
I know we have some pride in every one of you. That's why you got to leave thoughts in the comment section. We also have some pride in Carolina Ford dealers.
Yes,
our
we do.
sponsor here at Panthers Playbook with the Ford F-150 on your team. It's game on. See your Carolina Ford dealer today. Chris, we'll be back here next week, but we'll have a podcast episode on Thursday for you as well.